Today's guest is Angie Petty. Based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, Angie is set to make an impact with the upcoming release of her new album, Timing. Welcome, Angie.
Thanks for having
Hey,
me.
thanks
Hey.
for being on. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, let's start back at the beginning. Where were you born and raised, and how did music first come into your life?
So I was born in Silver Springs, Maryland,
Huh?
and I moved here when I was about a baby. So I consider myself pretty much born and raised in Utah. I've never lived anywhere else other than Utah. Music has really been in my blood as far as it's everybody in my family plays music, and there's a few professional musicians in my family. So started with my parents. My dad owns when he was 18, he started a music business, and it's called Power Music. And he would take popular top 40 tracks and all kinds of music, reproduce them to a certain BPM so that it was appropriate for working out. Because there was like a huge market for that in the 90s. And then he's developed that to what it is today. And they have apps, they have music everywhere. And I've actually done some recording for Power Music. So kind of start with that. My mom's a singer. She kind of grew up doing musicals, playing piano. She's my first voice teacher, my first piano teacher. And both my brothers are professional musicians. They're both working on their masters right now. They both went to Berklee College of Music. My aunt is a singer. My uncle's a bass player. My cousin is in the band The Aces. If you guys have heard of that group.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So my cousin plays bass in that band. So I'm just in a family full of musicians. So it was just family parties. We're singing together, harmonizing. And I grew up competitively dancing, and then I switched gears and really went into professionalism as far as music goes. And I went to college at Snow College, where I did a commercial music with an emphasis in vocal performance. And yeah, I started recording music a year ago and started releasing music under my own name and delving into my artistry. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I got to where I am today.
That's amazing. All right, that's a lot to unpack. Let's start back by the beginning. What did you grow up listening to? Like, what was in your household when you're getting raised?
Oh my gosh, so much different music. My parents really liked classic rock. I kind of grew up with Led Zeppelin, Journey. My dad is a huge smooth jazz fan, so I grew up listening to a lot of instrumental, kind of funky, smooth jazz, and a lot of pop music. Like I grew up in the middle of the Britney Spears, NSYNC, Christina Aguilera. So I was totally influenced by that. And going into working on my vocal technique, I kind of already had that like Britney Spears light, airy pop voice. And I kind of had to break out of that because I didn't want to be that. But I was totally influenced by the pop singers of the 90s and early 2000s.
That's awesome.
So yeah, just a huge variety of music. I really can't pin it to one, honestly. It's just like everything.
No, that's great though. It keeps you well rounded. That's kind of funny too that your dad's into like smooth jazz and he goes and makes like this workout music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's quite the connoisseur of music. Like he's just not one genre is played in my household. We can leave it at that.
Yeah, that's great. When did you start taking voice lessons, actually like working on your craft as a musician?
I mean, I took voice lessons when I was little, but I kind of went back and forth with it. I couldn't really stick with it, and I didn't know if I was going to end up sticking with music. It wasn't until about maybe high school when I was about 18 that I started really taking voice lessons. I remember I had a very groundbreaking lesson with Mindy Pack, who's a vocal coach in the area. And I had one lesson with her, and she recorded the lesson on a CD, and I kept that CD in my car. And every time I was in the car, I would listen to that one lesson and sing along with it and kind of unpack all the info she gave me. And that helped me really connect into my voice so I could sing. Like I worked on my belting technique. I had this thing where I was kind of, and this is a common thing with young singers, singing high is just always really light and wispy, and there's no like girth to it. So listening to that lesson over and over again helped me really develop my chest voice, which is where you get a lot of power in the higher notes. And then I started singing rock music, and I kept going with the pop vocal lessons. And then it wasn't until I decided to go to Snow College where I consistently took voice lessons for 3 years straight. And I studied classical music, I studied opera, I studied jazz, I studied more pop technique, and I still take lessons with Mindy Pack to this day. Not as often as I used to, but yeah, I'm still taking lessons.
That's awesome. And I saw that you play instruments too. Tell us about what instruments you play and when you started those.
So I play piano and I play guitar. I kind of have been playing them throughout my teenage years. I wouldn't say I'm amazing, but I can accompany myself. And that was initially the goal, is to be able to write using an instrument so I can be self-sufficient in that way. So I started piano when I was little, and my mom was my teacher, and that was kind of a struggle because it was a lot of like my mom telling me what to do. So I ended up quitting, and I would go back and forth, and I could, play chords, like chunk out little triads. But again, it wasn't until college where as part of my degree, I had to take a class called piano proficiency. And I guess I could say after that, 3 years of that, I would say I am piano proficient.
Nice.
And I've been picking up guitar more in this last year, actually since the pandemic, because I was bored and I'm like, this is a perfect time to get back to that instrument. There's something so different about the piano and guitar, and the way you can accompany yourself playing both of those, and just the way you can write on both of those instruments. So my brother, he's a guitar player, his name's Nick. He's been kind of giving me guitar lessons here and there, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos and kind of just put chords together. So yeah, guitar has been a long process, but I feel like I've gotten a lot of uphill growth since the pandemic with
That's
guitar.
awesome. Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious, like, how long did it take you to be able to play bar chords? I know it's a problem a lot of people have.
I'm still struggling, but I mean, I play on an electric guitar right now, which I think is easier to play bar chords on.
Yeah.
So bar chords came a little bit quicker on the electric guitar. I still, it's still not super clean sounding, but I would say just after a few months of like hardcore practice of like really holding down your finger and getting the finger placement and just like holding it down hard enough that you can get the good tone, but not so much that it's like straining on your hands. So I would say a few months, but also this is after years and years of like picking it up and stopping and picking it up again.
For sure. Nice. That's awesome. So you mentioned you started writing music. When did you start writing for yourself? I know you said you started recording about a year ago, but when did the writing process start for you?
It started in college. I actually went to college kind of a little bit lost with what I wanted to do. I had switched majors a few times before I decided to go to Snow College and get a music degree. And at that point, I was just like, it doesn't even matter what I get my degree in at this point. In hindsight, it's true. Degrees are kind of worthless right now. Like a job is a job. And no matter if you have a degree or not, like they're hard to come by with the economy and COVID and everything. So I just jumped in. I said, hey, I love music. I know I want to get a degree, might as well get it in this. So starting college, I went in thinking I'm just going to get better at singing and just see what happens. I'm not planning to record music ever. I don't think that's anything I care to do or can do. So I just kind of went in like, let's start singing. And I had to take theory classes. And in those classes, for some exercises, we had to write a song based on certain like harmony we were learning at the time. So one of the first songs I wrote was for a theory class. And that was the first time I really wrote, because I had to. So one of the first songs I wrote that I was really proud of was the first single I ended up releasing, which is called Something Special. So I wrote that maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And then it went through a lot of changes. And then I brought it to my producer Joshy, who kind of changed the whole thing. So we took the structure of that and then morphed it into the sound that I'm going for now, because I've been thinking about uploading the demo from years and years ago. It sounds really bad, but it's come so far as like the feel and the sound, and my voice has changed so much, and the song meaning has changed. It changes every time I sing it because it means something different in that moment. So yeah, a few years ago is when I started writing, and it was all just because of a theory class. And I try to tell any young artist trying to write music, like, theory will help so much.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. So yeah, tell us more about that. You talked about the album. So your album Timing comes out April 2nd. Tell us about what it's like to write and record that, and kind of what the process has been for you.
Yeah, so actually the release date is being pushed now, so it's not going to be April 2nd. And it's funny because as much as I want it to come out tomorrow, the whole concept of the album is trust the timing, and the timing is not happening right now, so it's probably going to come out more like May.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the process with that album, again, like, I went in, even releasing my first single, just like, I'm going to release this, I'm never going to release an album, it's fine, whatever. So once I released my first single, Something Special, I started working on the next single, which was called Feel It All. And then that kind of just got the ball rolling, and I started putting these songs together. And then it got to a point where it's like, I have enough for an album, so why wouldn't I just compile all these songs and put it together in an album? Because, like, why not? You know, that's enough music for a body of work. And that's what I want to put out, is I want to be a real musician. I want to be taken seriously, and I don't want to just put out one single and then, like, okay, that's it, like, I'm a musician. No, I want to put out a body of work. And now that I have put together an album and it's almost out, I'm almost thinking about, okay, well, what's next? Like, let's do another album. And I've learned so much from putting together this album that the next one is going to be really cool, because now I know what I want to do differently, how I want to approach it. So yeah, it's just getting that first single out and getting this ball rolling. And yeah, so back to the title, Timing. That was so the title track for the album is called Timing, which is the album title. And I wrote that song very last. That song wasn't even going to be on the album. I had no idea what the title of the album was going to be called. It was kind of just like, okay, I'm going to compile all these songs and put it together. So I actually did a Zoom call with one of my friends. Her name's Brooklyn. She lives in New York. And we decided to do some co-writing. So I started with this idea. I started with this beat I found and added some chords. And I was like, okay, timing kept coming to me, just the word timing. And then it turned into trust the timing. So then I brought that to her, and then we kind of hashed out this idea of using that lyrical concept of trust the timing. And then I said, oh, I think that needs to go on the album. And I think the album is going to be called Timing, because all of these songs within this album happened in such perfect timing and in a time where I didn't think anything was going to come out of it. So it all just came together. And it's also just a lesson for me to continue to trust the timing of everything. And you can't really force things to happen. It kind of has to happen on its own, and it has to flow. And that's just something I've been learning, is going with the flow. So timing, yeah, it's going to be cool. And it'll be out hopefully in a few weeks, probably May.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so excited to hear it.
Thank you.
So when you've been writing these songs and also recording them, has it been more of a solo effort by yourself, or has it been collaborative? Like, how's that been?
It kind of started as a solo effort, but then I realized it doesn't have to be that way. There are so many artists that can write, produce, and release a whole album just by themselves. I need a little bit of help, because I start to get stuck on ideas and I get a little inside my head. And once I figured out, like, you can co-write with people and it can be something beyond what you personally could have ever imagined it could be, that really opened up a whole new world. So Something Special, I initially wrote by myself, but when I brought it to Joshy to produce, he co-wrote some parts on it, and it morphed into something completely different. So then by the next song, I thought, I'm going to start the song co-writing with somebody. And I also decided to try, because usually I start with a lyric or a melody, and with my next song, Feel It All, I decided to start with a beat and write based off of a beat to see what happened. So I came up with this like groove, this beat, and then I decided to bring my friend Jay Warren onto it. And that was kind of the first real collaborative practice I've had. And that ended up being awesome. So then I thought, okay, I need to keep collaborating with people, because for now, until I figure out like how to write dense lyrics and interesting harmony, I need to work with other people. And there's so much magic that can happen from getting a few musicians in a room and seeing, like, bringing all of our experiences and all of our ideas together and creating a song that is something, a piece of every different person. So I am really looking forward to collaborating with more artists, especially as, you know, COVID is lifting a little bit and we can meet up with people again. I'm really looking forward to that experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, so I'm assuming you've learned a lot from the beginning when you had kind of this vision for an album or vision for what you wanted to write. But you know, I'm sure it changes a lot as the process, and have to learn to actually implement and make this project. What advice would you give to an artist who wants to make a great album, but who really hasn't done anything so far?
I would say don't get too overwhelmed with the final project. Because I didn't even look at, I'm going to release an album. It started with one single, and then I did that. So I decided to do another single, and then I did that, and then I did another single. And then I said, oh my gosh, I have enough material to put together an album. So I would say start with one thing, perfect that one thing, and go from there. Unless you know you want to do an album and you have a concept for a full length album that every song is flowing, it's like a whole storyline. Start with one part of the story and then move on. And you might jump around. It's not going to be completely consecutive, but start with one thing and get that thing really good and then move on. And just starting one idea can get the ball rolling. Because that's how it worked for me. It's just sitting down, putting it on paper is the first step.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that's great advice. So do you have much experience playing live, or is that just going to come in the future? How's that been for you?
So I've been performing live for years and years and years. And that's kind of been my main thing. And that's also why I didn't think I would ever become a recording artist, just because I have been doing the live thing for so long. And I've sang with a lot of cover bands, and I've played corporate events, I've played weddings, I've really just performed all over. As far as my own music, I haven't had too many opportunities yet. I'm still getting my live set really solid and put together. And I only started releasing music last January in 2020, and then COVID happened just weeks after that. So I wasn't even able to play live shows. And as much as virtual shows are fun and it's a good experience, I know it's not the same for me. I have to have my musicians with me, and I have to have that improvisation element, and I have to be able to like sing to people, not just to a screen. So I haven't been too eager to put on like live stream concerts. However, now that things are starting to get a little bit back to normal and I have a full body of work that I can play, I'm really looking forward to playing more live shows, especially when the album drops. I'm planning to do an album release show in the best and safest way I possibly can in the next few months. But things are starting to pick up, and my ultimate goal is to play less cover band type stuff and more of my original music. So that is on the way. It's just been kind of getting the music out as a first step.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. What vision do you see for your live set being like? Do you want to have a full band? Do you see more acoustic stuff? Do you want to use backing tracks? Like, what's kind of your initial vision of it?
My initial vision is a mix of acoustic and full band. Tracks would be cool because you can really get a full sound, but I love hearing an artist and loving their music and loving the production of their music, but then seeing them live to see how they play it. And a lot of bands are moving towards tracks, which is so cool. And you still get a live music element. However, I really appreciate seeing how the band actually plays it without all the extra production. So I know for me, I'm planning to play with my band and put on a really good show with live instruments and get that live element. I do in smaller shows. I love doing acoustic. My brother is a guitar player and we have a really solid acoustic set that we do. And we've actually played our acoustic show throughout the pandemic in small live scenarios when it's appropriate. We've been doing that together, so that's been fun. But I'm really excited to bring on a full band with horns and singers and every instrument possible. So that's on the way for sure.
That's awesome. I'm excited for it.
Thanks.
So what are your long-term goals for music?
I right now get the album out and play as much as I possibly can. Write another album in the future at some point. Ultimately I want to travel, so I want to play music everywhere I can. I would love to tour. I would love to back up a bigger artist and tour with them. I think that would be a really cool experience until I figure out how to put together my own tour. I think following an artist who has already done that would be really, really just amazing.
Yeah.
So ultimately traveling and seeing the world and playing music is my goal.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you talking with me today. I appreciate, the experiences we talked about. And I think a lot of people have a lot to get out of what they're hearing about, like the process of making albums for the first time. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.